Hello, good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening. Continuing the reading of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad from where we left yesterday. Yesterday we had read till the place where Rich Dad talks about money being an illusion, money being not a real asset, working for a gold standard and all of that. And Rich Dad explaining to Robert and Mike that money is a trap, the fear and greed driving people's thought process, all that. We will continue. We had to start with seeing what others miss. So we will continue to read and we will see what others miss. Seeing what others miss. As he climbed into his pickup truck outside his convenience store, Rich Dad said, "Keep working, boys, but the sooner you forget about needing a paycheck, the easier your life will be. Keep using your brain, work for free, and soon your mind will show you ways of making money far beyond what I could ever pay you. You will see things that other people never see. Most people never see these opportunities because they are looking for money and security, so that's all they get. The moment you see one opportunity, you will see them for the rest of your life. The moment you do that, I'll teach you something else. Learn this, and you will avoid one of life's biggest traps." See what Rich Dad is telling, that he is telling that in spite of you not being paid for the work that you are doing, you continue to work, continue to give your best, continue to work for free, and slowly but surely your mind will show you ways of making money beyond what I could pay you. Now he says that once you start seeing opportunities, you will see that for the rest of your life. So the problem is not lack of opportunities, as Rich Dad talks about here. The problem is that opportunities is not that the opportunities are not there, but the problem is people don't have the ability to see opportunities. Once you learn how to see the opportunities, once you figure out in your mind and develop the ability to see opportunities, you will start seeing them for the rest of your lives. That is what Rich Dad is talking about. He says, once you learn this, you will avoid one of the life's biggest traps, and I'll teach you something else once you start seeing opportunities. Mike and I picked up our things from the store and waved goodbye to Mrs. Martin. We went back to the park, to the same picnic bench, and spent several more hours thinking and talking. We spent the next week at school thinking and talking too. For 2 more weeks, we kept thinking, talking, and working for free. At the end of the second Saturday, I was again saying goodbye to Mrs. Martin and looking at the comic book stand with a longing gaze. The hard thing about not even getting 30 cents every Saturday, was that I didn't have any money to buy comic books. Suddenly, as Mrs. Martin said goodbye to Mike and me, I saw her do something I'd never seen her do before. Mrs. Martin was cutting the front page of the comic book in half. She kept the top half of the comic book cover and threw the rest of the book into a large cardboard box. When I asked her what she did with the comic books, she said, "I throw them away. I give the top half of the cover back to the comic book distributor for credit when he brings in the new comics. He's coming in an hour." Mike and I waited for an hour. Soon the distributor arrived and I asked him if we could have the comic books. To my delight, he said, "You can have them if you work for this store and do not resell them." Remember our old business partnership? Well, Mike and I revived it. Using a spare room in Mike's basement, we began piling hundreds of comic books in that room. Soon our comic book library was open to the public. We hired Mike's younger sister, who loved to study, to be head librarian. She charged each child 10 cents admission to the library, which was open from 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. every day after school. The customers, the children of the neighborhood, could read as many comics as they wanted in 2 hours. It was a bargain for them since a comic cost 10 cents each and they could read 5 or 6 in 2 hours. Mike's sister would check the kids as they left to make sure they weren't borrowing any comic books. She also kept the books, logging in how many kids showed up each day, who they were, and any comments they might have. Mike and I averaged $9.5 per week over a 3 month period. We paid his sister $1 a week and allowed her to read the comics for free, which she rarely did since she was always studying. Now, do you see this? Rich Dad had told that if you can see opportunities, you will start seeing them for life. What he noticed was what Mike and Robert noticed was that Mrs. Martin was taking off the top cover of the book and returned it to the comic book distributor. Now, when the distributor came, Robert asked the distributor whether they can have the comic books. The distributor said, if you are working in this store and you don't resell them, you can have the books. Now, this struck an idea in the mind of Robert and Mike. They restarted their business in partnership. They collected all these comic books from the distributor and they started stacking up in the basement in one room. Now, each comic book would cost them 10 cents. Now they would give library access to children who want to read the comic books for about 2 hours for 10 cents. Instead of buying one book for 10 cents, the kids could read 5 to 6 books for 10 cents of money. Now, this was a win-win situation for everybody. The children who wanted to read comic books need not spend 10 cents for every comic book, but they could read multiple comic books for 10 cents. Robert and Mike could collect these books from the distributor without paying him any money, so the 10 cents they would get for the 2 hours is a profit. And to monitor the comic book library of the neighborhood, they hired Mike's younger sister. So over a 3 months period, they could make $9.5. They paid $1 per week. They paid $1 per week to Mike's sister, and rest of it was profit for them. You see, they were working in the same place for so long. They were working in the same place for so long, and they did not realize until they were ready to see the opportunity that there was a possibility of a business in that place itself, as they were working for free with Mike's dad. Mike and I kept our agreement by working in the store every Saturday and collecting all the comic books from the different stores. We kept our agreement to the distributor by not selling any comic books. We burned them once they got too tattered. We tried opening a branch office, but we could never quite find someone as trustworthy and dedicated as Mike's sister. At an early age, we found out how hard it was to find good staff. So, two things they realized. One, their business was doing good. Second, if they want to expand their business, it is important to have people whom they can trust. Because they could not find somebody whom they can trust as they could trust Mike's sister, they did not start their branch office. That was one of their first lessons, that it is very important to find good staff, and it was very hard to. 3 months after the library first opened, a fight broke out in the room. Some bullies from another neighborhood pushed their way in, and Mike's dad suggested we shut down the business. So our comic book business shut down, and we stopped working on Saturdays at the convenience store. But Rich Dad was excited because he had new things he wanted to teach us. He was happy because we had learned our first lesson so well. We learned to make money work for us. By not getting paid for our work at the store, we were forced to use our imaginations to identify an opportunity to make money. By starting our own business, the comic book library, we were in control of our own finances, not dependent on an employer. The best part was that our business generated money for us even when we weren't physically there. Our money worked for us. Instead of paying us money, Rich Dad had given us so much more. So, this brings us to the end of the first lesson, that rich don't work for money, the rich make money work for them. By the end of this, Robert and Mike had learned how to make money by thinking about innovative ideas, by thinking about solutions that can solve somebody's problems. If you create a solution to somebody's problem, they will pay for getting that solution, and that is a business. And if you have trustworthy people to manage it in your absence, You are making money even when you are not there. So Robert and Mike did not get paid for the work they did at the convenience store of Mike's dad, that is the rich dad, but they learned wonderful lessons which would make them stronger in their further journey to financial freedom. So after we have completed this first chapter, first lesson, we will go to the second chapter, that is lesson 2. Lesson 2 is why teach financial literacy. Now, we all know what is literacy. Literacy is being able to read and write and understand. When we say India, the literacy rate of a particular country is so and so, it simply means that so many percentage of people in that country are capable of reading and writing. That's all. Financial literacy means what? It is literacy about finance. Finance is that which deals with money, the aspects of money. How to understand money is financial literacy. If you are able to understand money and use it, use the knowledge of money to handle money, then you have financial literacy. So, the second chapter, which is the lesson number 2 in this book, is why to teach financial literacy. Why is it so important that we have to teach children how to be financially literate? It goes like this. There is a caption, there is a statement in the beginning of the chapter. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. In 1990, Mike took over his father's empire and is in fact doing a better job than his dad did. We see each other once or twice a year on the golf course. He and his wife are wealthier than you could imagine. Rich Dad's empire is in great hands, and Mike is now grooming his son to take his place as his dad had groomed us. In 1994, I retired at the age of 47, and my wife, Kim, was 37. Retirement does not mean not working. For us, it means that, barring unforeseen cataclysmic changes, we can work or not work, and our wealth grows automatically, staying ahead of inflation. Our assets are large enough to grow by themselves. It's like planting a tree. You water it for years and then one day it doesn't need you anymore. Its roots are implanted deep enough, then the tree provides shade for your enjoyment. For all the children in this book reading session, it is very important to understand this. See, Mike took over his dad's empire in 1990 and he was building it better than Rich Dad did. And he was grooming his son also to understand the business and take over the business in the course of time. In 1994, Robert retired. Robert retired in 1994 at the age of 47, and his wife Kim was 37-year-old. He explains that retirement does not mean not working. When you say retirement, it doesn't mean that you stop working. It simply means unless there is some major changes that happen, something really bad happens, their wealth will continue to grow, their money will continue to grow whether they work or not. He says it's like planting a tree. If you plant a tree and you take care of it properly for a few years, it will grow to such a stage that it will no longer require you and it will continue to give you fruits, whether you water it or not water it. Money is like that. Wealth is like that. That is what will give you good retirement, is what Rich Robert says here. So, unless you build your wealth, you build your money like a tree, that it will give you fruits even in the long run when you stop working, you will not be able to sustain your lifestyle or you will not be able to sustain the wealth or retain the wealth that you have built. Let's see how to do it. Mike chose to run the empire and I chose to retire. Whenever I speak to groups of people, they often ask what I would recommend that they do. How do I get started? Is there a book you would recommend? What should I do to prepare my children? What is your secret to success? How do I make millions of money? Whenever I hear one of these questions, I am reminded of the following story. Don't you see this happening even in our surroundings? When there is a rich person, people are always asking questions to the rich person on how to make money. How did you make so much money? What do I do also to make money like you? Where do I start? What do I have to read? How do I prepare my children? Actually, I did not become rich. I could not make enough money. How do I prepare my children so that they can make good amount of money? Robert says, whenever somebody asks him this question, he recalls this story, and this story I will read now. The richest businessman. The story's name is The Richest Businessman. In 1923, a group of our greatest leaders and richest businessmen held a meeting at the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago. Among them were Charles Schwab, head of the largest independent steel company, Samuel Insull, president of the world's largest utility, Howard Hobson, head of the largest gas company, Ivar Kruger, president of International Match Company, one of the world's largest companies at that time, Leon Frazier, president of the Bank of International Settlements, Richard Whitney, president of the New York Stock Exchange, Arthur Cotton and Jesse Livermore, two of the biggest stock speculators, and Albert Fall, a member of President Harding's cabinet. 25 years later, nine of these titans ended their lives as follows. Schwab died penniless after living for 5 years on borrowed money. Insull died broke in a foreign land, and Kruger and Cotton also died broke. Hobson went insane. Whitney and Albert Fall were released from prison, and Fraser and Livermore committed suicide. Did you see this? In 1923, a group of greatest leaders and richest businessmen held a meeting on something. They discussed something. They were having a meeting of some important, as a meeting on some important agenda. But Robert tells about what happened to them by the end of their lives. That is 25 years later, nine of these titans, nine of these biggest people who had met 25 years ago as greatest one, as among the biggest and richest people in the world, one died penniless after living on borrowed money for 5 years. One went to a foreign land and died a pauper. Two more also died broke. Broke means not having enough money. One of these people went insane, got mad, and went mad. Two people were released from prison. That means they had gone to prison for something, and two people committed suicide. Why? These were the richest people of those times. These were the people who had a lot of money in those times. But why did such misfortune or why did such bad end come to these people in a span of just 25 years? We all would have seen, and if it is the children listening to this can ask from their parents and grandparents stories of people who had a lot of money once upon a time. Their families had lots of money once upon a time, and over time they lost everything, and they become very ordinary in their life, and they become very poor in their living. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? How can one lose so much money and become penniless or become broke? We'll go on to read and understand. I doubt if anyone can say what really happened to these men. If you look at the date 1923, it was just before the 1929 market crash and the Great Depression, which I suspect had a greater impact on these men and their lives. The point is this: today we live in times of greater and faster change than these men did. I suspect there will be many booms and busts in the coming years that will parallel the ups and downs these men faced. I am concerned that too many people are too focused on money and not on their greatest wealth, their education. If people are prepared to be flexible, keep an open mind and learn, they will grow richer and richer despite tough changes. If they think money will solve problems, they will have a rough ride. Intelligence solves problems and produces money. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. Many of these people had to face the Great Depression of 1929. In 1929, the world saw a great crash, financial crash. What we call recession now, depression is bigger than a recession. So most of these people would have been affected by that Great Depression. But Robert says, we are also facing many such situations. If you are focused too much on money and not giving enough importance to education, there are higher chances, there are greater chances that all of us would be faced with the same situations that these people faced. If you think money can solve problems, wrong. Intelligence solves problems and produces money. You have to develop your intelligence. You have to become more and more intelligent. You have to become more knowledgeable and you have to become more wiser, and that will give you more money. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. If you don't have the financial intelligence, whatever money you might have, you will lose it. You will lose it and you will not have enough left. So people who think that they have a lot of money, they don't have to work, they can just sit and enjoy, they can just sit and spend the money that they have and it will still be there. They will realize very soon that the money will not stay with them if they don't have the intelligence to handle that money. Most people fail to realize that in life, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep that matters. We have all heard stories of lottery winners who are poor, then suddenly rich, and then poor again. They win millions, yet are soon back where they started. Or stories of professional athletes who at the age of 24 are earning millions but are sleeping under a bridge 10 years later. I remember a story of a young basketball player who a year ago had millions. Today, at just 29, he claims his friend's attorney and accountant took his money, and he was forced to work at a car wash for minimum wage. He was fired from the car wash because he refused to take off his championship ring as he was wiping off the cars. His story made national news, and he is appealing his termination, claiming hardship and discrimination. He claims that the ring is all he has left, and if it was stripped away, he will crumble. I know so many people who became instant millionaires. And while I'm glad some people have become richer and richer, I caution them that in the long run, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep and how many generations you keep it. See, so important. A lot of people make lots of money. There are a lot of people who make lots of money quickly also. Somebody might have sold a property when there is a high price for the property. They become rich, they get lots of money, and soon within a few years they are again back to becoming poor. Why is this happening? Why does this happen? Why are people having so much money going back to becoming poor? Many people also become rich. Many people also go on to become rich. So Robert says that it's not how much money you make that matters. It is how much money you can keep that matters. And for how many generations can you keep it? So you might be intelligent, you might be sensible, and you might make sure that the money is sustained and retained in your family. But if you don't pass on that intelligence to your children, they will not be able to keep it. So having a lot of money, being able to keep it and being able to pass on to generations and the generations also keep it and grow it is a sign of intelligence, financial intelligence. So when people ask, where do I get started? Or tell me how to get rich quick, they often are greatly disappointed with my answer. I simply say to them what my rich dad said to me when I was a little kid. If you want to be rich, you need to be financially literate. That idea was drummed into my head every time we were together. As I said, my educated dad stressed the importance of reading books, while my rich dad stressed the need to master financial literacy. If you are going to build the Empire State Building, the first thing you need to do is dig a deep hole and pour a strong foundation. If you are going to build a home in the suburbs, all you need to do is pour a 6-inch slab of concrete. Most people, in their drive to get rich, are trying to build an Empire State Building on a 6-inch slab. Such a beautiful example that Robert is giving. If you want to build a very big building, you have to go deeper into the ground and build strong foundation. What will happen if you are in a hurry to build that building and you make a small foundation? If you want to build a small house, if you want to build a small house, 1 floor or 2 floors, you need a small foundation. You need a simple foundation. But if you are in a hurry to build a big building, but you don't have the patience to build a strong foundation, you lay down a simple foundation and you try to build a huge building, what will happen? Is there anything else for the building than to fall down and crumble because the foundation is not strong? isn't it? Our school system, created in the agrarian age, still believes in homes with no foundation. Dirt floors are still the rage, so kids graduate from school with virtually no financial foundation. One day, sleepless and deep in debt in suburbia, living the American dream, they decide that the answer to their financial problems is to find a way to get rich quick. Construction on the skyscraper begins. It goes up quickly, and soon, instead of the Empire State Building, we have the Leaning Tower of suburbia. The sleepless nights return. As for Mike and me in our adult years, both of our choices were possible because we were taught to pour a strong foundation, financial foundation, when we were just kids. Accounting is possibly the most confusing, boring subject in the world, but if you want to be rich long term, it could be the most important subject. For Rich Dad, the question was how to take a boring and confusing subject and teach it to kids. The answer he found was to make it simple by teaching it in pictures. See, one lesson for all the kids out there who want to become entrepreneurs. If you want to become entrepreneurs and build an empire and make a lot of wealth, then you need to have a very strong financial education, financial literacy as the foundation. And however boring accounting is, understanding taxation, understanding bookkeeping is a very important skill that you need to develop as entrepreneurs. So, if you have access to some accounting knowledge, gain that knowledge, learn how to do accounting, how to create a balance sheet, how to calculate credits and debits. Accounting is an important subject that one needs to learn. My rich dad poured a strong financial foundation for Mike and me. Since we were just kids, he created a simple way to teach us. For years, he only drew pictures and used few words. Mike and I understood the simple drawings, the jargon, the movement of money, and then in later years, Rich Dad began adding numbers. Today, Mike has gone on to master much more complex and sophisticated accounting analysis because he had to in order to run his empire. I am not as sophisticated because my empire is smaller, yet we come from the same simple foundation. Over the following pages, I offer to you the same simple line drawings Mike's dad created for us. Though basic, those drawings helped guide two little boys in building great sums of wealth on a solid and deep foundation. See, when there will be these drawings that come up, I will share those drawings also on the screen so that those who are listening to it and will be able to look at the drawings that Robert is talking about and understand what he means. Okay. So going forward now with financial literacy, Robert will go on to teach us about different rules. Rule number one that he will be teaching is you must know the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets. What is an asset? What is a liability? We need to understand that. And Robert says the first rule is you should buy assets and not build on liabilities. We will expand on this. We will continue reading this, the rule number one of financial literacy, tomorrow when we meet again because we have only 1 minute left and this is a few pages in length to read and we will not be able to complete it. So let's conclude for the day. What is the important takeaway lesson for today? If you want to become rich, you have to build a very strong foundation, and that foundation is of financial education, education about money. The more you understand about money in a proper sense, you will have a stronger foundation to build your empire of business or enterprise and create wealth that will sustain for generations. And as we are moving towards understanding financial literacy more and more, we will read about the first rule of Robert Kiyosaki, that is Rich Dad gave him, that you have to understand and know the difference between assets and liabilities, and you have to always buy assets and not liabilities. We will end the stream for the day. Go back and think as you sleep about how you can build more and more financial knowledge. What are all the things that you can pay attention to in your home, in your surroundings, wherever you are, wherever you see, start trying to understand the financial aspects of that particular situation. So, we will conclude for the day. See you all. Let more knowledge come into your minds and make you stronger and stronger to create meaningful wealth and contribute to the welfare of the nation and humanity. Thank you very much. See you all tomorrow. Good night.